You are the one. I miss you so much. Now that you're gone, don't be afraid. I'll be by your side.
Ryan, sign the papers and get out from here. Her all hopes crashed within a moment when he gave her those papers. How easy it is to give someone hope and then snatch it in another second. But it is very hard for the person whom you are giving false hopes. It's not hard to live in a misery if you are born in this, but it is hard when you are again thrown in it after a long pause. Vine is crying in the backyard of their house. She signed the papers and threw them on his face along with a tight slap on his face. Before running out from there, she just wanted to cry her heart out, so she just sat in the backyard of their house as her mind wasn't working that time. She was just crying and crying from an hour. But then her phone rang, which she threw on the ground, sometimes echoed. And when she looked at the caller ID, her blood boiled and she threw the phone on the ground aggressively. She heard him calling her name. Ryan. She again heard his voice. And when she lifted up her head, and there he was in front of her. His eyes were also teary, but she was in no condition to see that. She crawled back, thinking that now he is here to hurt her. Stay away, she said when she noticed him coming closer to her. Never in her life she thought that she had to protect herself from him. But now the situation is different. He didn't listen her and embraced her tightly in his arms as he was searching for her from almost 1.5 hours. And he was so scared by the thought, what if something happened to her? Stay away, leave me, leave me. He heard her voice getting low, and before she could complete, she lost her senses and fainted in his arms. He panicked when he noticed she stopped struggling, and when he looked down, he saw that she fainted. Ryan, open your eyes. Love, open your eyes, please. He was tapping her cheeks, but no response. Till now, he was crying miserably. If something happened to her, then he'll not be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. He cradled her in his arms before moving towards his car. Jungkook is sitting on the edge of the bed while taking her palm between his both hands. The doctor has already checked her and said that she fainted because of shock and exhaustion, and told him to take her hospital when she is awake for further checkups. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. He didn't want to leave her even for a second. But the call was important, so he carefully left her palm before making his way out of the room. Boss, everything is in our control now, and your father-in-law is safe. But what we have to do with Mr. Kim? His eyes darkened when the man mentioned his stepfather's name, who is the cause of their sufferings right now. Torture him till death, but don't let him die. Hear it again. Don't let him die. Otherwise, you'll not be able to see the next sunrise. The man on the other side gulped in fear. Yes, boss. but Jungkook has already disconnected the call. Meanwhile, Wyan opened her eyes slowly, but next second instantly grabbed her head tightly as she felt a sudden pain there. She roamed her eyes around and she recognizes the place as she came here before also with Jungkook. She heard the door unlocking sound and Jungkook entered slowly and unknowingly she crawled back on the bed. Wyan, he said when he saw her awake. What do you want now? Just give me a chance to explain. What do you want to explain? That how well you played with my feelings? What do you want from me now? I have already signed the divorce papers. Just go from here. Wyan, please, listen to me once. He was trying to persuade her to let him explain just one. But she wasn't ready to hear his any pleading. If you just wanted property, then why you showed your fake love to me? Oh, now I get it. You wanted to have some fun also, and that too with me. And that's why you played this love game. So you can take advantage of me and fulfill your needs, right? He shouted at her for the first time. Her name from his mouth echoed in that silent room and she flinched while looking at his raised hand. Now he will harm her. That's the thought came in her mind. Unconsciously, her hand traveled to her belly, protecting her unborn baby. While Jungkook realized what he did, he immediately took his hand back. His eyes again softened. For her, he used to be her safe place, but now she is scared of him. He messed his hair in frustration. Why? Just go from here. I don't. Her words cut off in the middle when she heard a soft yet familiar voice. Why? Her eyes traveled towards the source of the voice. Dad, she said before getting down from the bed and ran to her dad and hugged him tightly. Dad, please take me with you. You were right. I shouldn't have trusted a mafia. They only knows how to kill someone, physically or mentally. They all are same. Dad, please take me with you. She is repeating the same thing again and again. And Jungkook was feeling so much pain as she was begging to go away from him. Why? He is not what you are thinking. She stopped sobbing and part away from her dad and looked at her dad in disbelief. You also, Dad? There are reasons for what he did, my child. He said, cupping her cheeks, but she removed his hand from her. No, Dad. He also trapped you in his sweet talks, right? Like he trapped me. Why? Listen to me. I don't want to listen anything. She said and strides towards the door, but Jungkook blocked her way. You can't go. She tried to move away from him, but he didn't let her go and embraced her in his arms. She strived to move him away, but he wasn't letting her, and in the end, she jerked his body away from him and slapped him hard on his cheek, and everything became silent for a second. He looked at her with his red eyes. He was looking hurt. She felt a little bad for slapping him. She didn't wanted to do that, but it was involuntary reaction from her side. He grabbed her shoulders tightly and pulled her closer to him. Slap me as much as you want. Hit me with all of your might. But I'll not let you go. Not until you hear me once. His hot breath was fanning against her lips. He was dangerously close to her. I said I don't want to listen anything. Tape me. She was struggling under his grip continuously, but her struggles came to halt when her dad spoke something. I'm alive today only because of him. Everything he said to you earlier was a lie, complete lie. She tended to turn, and Jungkook loses his grip on her shoulders. Dad, you don't know him. He's trapping you in his plans. He threw the divorce papers on my face. No, Wyatt. He loves you. Just for one time, please listen to me. You love your dad, right? I'll not be able to bear it. That because of me, your married life came to end. Please listen to me, Wyatt. At last, his voice broke, and Wyatt immediately ran to her dad as she couldn't see her dad crying. Dad, don't cry. I'll listen to you, okay? Only you. Her dad sighed and signaled Jungkook to leave the room for some time. Jungkook didn't want it to leave, but left from there, thinking she needed some time. I was kidnapped by Mr. Kim. Wyan's eyes widened at his sudden exclamation, and her dad started explaining everything from the start. Wyan's dad and Jungkook's stepdad, Mr. Kim, was business partners, but Wyan's dad came to know that Mr. Kim is using company's finance without any proper reason, and he is also involved in some illegal activities. Wyan's dad cut his all ties with him and sent him to jail. However, he escaped after bribing the officers, and after changing his identity, he married Jungkook's mom after trapping her in his fake love, as she was single mother plus only owner of Jeon Corporation, and after that he used Jungkook for his revenge. But as the time passes, he came to know about his true colors, and he decided to save that innocent girl, but eventually he fell for her. Then why he didn't tell me before doing all this? Cause I was under his dad from almost 1 month, and Jungkook didn't wanted him to get suspicious that Jungkook is double crossing him. And now it makes sense to why. Cause all this started a month ago, but still she is not ready to forgive him. Couldn't he tell her about his plans? Was it necessary to pull this act and break her heart? And that too on the day when she was about to give him surprise that they are going to have their little one soon. She is not ready to accept anything. Even after knowing everything that Jungkook didn't have any choice, still she was feeling rage towards him. Dad, I want some time alone. But dear, Dad, please, she said while grabbing her head, and he nodded and left from there after patting her head. Vine was sleeping peacefully until she felt that someone was caressing her hairs softly She felt a familiar presence beside her. She snuggled in his lap and wrapped her hands around his stomach. She slightly smiled in her sleep, and Jungkook was caressing her head. But when she opened her eyes, she immediately moved away from him and sat on the bed, rubbing her eyes. What are you doing here? Why? Dad told you everything. Then why are you behaving like this? She sighed, because even she don't know the answer of this question. Then, do you want me to forgive you this easily? Do you even know how much I cried? You don't know how I felt when those papers? She couldn't complete, and her eyes again filled with water. I left a letter for you, cause his eyes were everywhere, but you didn't pay attention to it. Whoa, how easily you are blaming everything on me. Whoa, Mr. John. I'm not saying this, Ryan. He wasn't able to say anything as he was out of words now. Yeah, I know what you are trying to say. Go and get me a glass of water. I'm thirsty. Then we'll talk, she said, being annoyed, while he looked at her, narrowing his eyes. Cause a minute ago she was crying, and now she is ordering him around. Ryan, water. He handed her a glass of water, which she gulped down in one go. Slowly, you will choke. And she started coughing. He shook his head and rubbed her back to give her some relief. I told you, I'm okay. Jungkook, I don't want to stay here. This is too dark here, she said while looking around, and Jungkook nodded before getting up from the bed. You can go anywhere, but not away from me, he said, and walked towards the door. And where do you think you are going? Jungkook turned around and looked at her confusingly. Yeah, you idiot, pick me up, she said, raising her hands, gesturing him to pick her up. He looked at her for some time before picking her up in his arms, and she slowly wrapped her arms around his neck. He slowly made his way towards the living area and made her sit on the couch, and sat kneeling down in front of her, keeping her hands between his. Why? I'm sorry, but I didn't have any choice. She stopped him by putting her one finger on his lips. Can we just forget about it? I don't want to remember that, please. I don't want to discuss those painful memories right now. I want this time to be a beautiful time ever. Her words made him confused. What are you talking about? His gaze traveled from her face to her belly, where their little one is growing. His eyes teared up. He slightly caressed her invisible baby bump before pulling her in his arms. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the pain I gave you. Please forgive me, Ryan. She didn't expect him to cry like this. Hey, don't cry, please. She caressed his head. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'll forgive you only on one condition. What condition? He asked after pulling away from the hug. It's... Forget what happened today. I don't want to remember anything except this part where we are happy in each other's arms. Nothing else. Let's just pretend nothing like that happened. And I'm also sorry. I shouldn't have reacted that way. And I also slapped you. I'm sorry. He cupped her face softly, looking deep in her eyes, seeing his own reflection in them. What are you saying, Maya? I don't remember being slapped by you. She squinted her eyes in confusion. What? Didn't you said let's just forget it? So I don't remember anything, okay? Okay. She smiled and opened her arms, indicating him to lift her. And he left her in his arms. And she hugged him like a koala.